All right. Well, I'm here today with my friend, Dr. Arlene Taylor, and she knows she's one of my favorite people for her positivity and her grace, and she's just an incredible researcher. I trust when she gives me information that she does not open her mouth unless she has read deeply and thoroughly and considered what she's talking about. Dr. Arlene was a registered nurse and then earned her master's degrees and 2 earned doctorates. That's no small accomplishment. And she is the founder and president of Realizations Inc., where they do brain function research. And you can learn all about her at arlenetaylor.org. I encourage you to do that. She has so many, not just articles and blogs, but even activities, things that will really help you with your brain, help you with memory, and just kind of keep you sharp. And when you hear from her, you realize that it's a blessing to pay attention to your health. We share a common positivity, and we really want our body, mind, soul, spirit all to flourish. And so we're going to have a little chat today, always centered around health. But today, in particular, we're talking about PFAS. And so I'm not going to attempt to explain what those are because my friend here is going to do that for us. So welcome, Dr. Arlene. Thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure, Wendy. Always a pleasure.
So if you could just talk to me kind of in layman terms for those of us who maybe we've never heard of them or we've heard just a little bit about them, like exactly what does PFAS stand for? What are these things?
PFAS, of course, is an acronym. It's for polyfluoroalkyl substances, and that's a mouthful, so I'm glad they're called PFAS. Since at least the 1940s, manufacturers have used these synthetic, human-made chemicals in so many ways. PFAS molecules contain chains of carbon that are covered with fluorine atoms, and that combination somehow together forms one of the strongest known chemical bonds on planet Earth. PFAS chemicals are exceptionally durable. They repel water, fire, oil. They're designed to withstand grease, stains, heat, and this makes them incredibly valuable for a variety of products on planet Earth, but it also contributes to their absolute persistence in the environment.
Yeah, so it reminds me of, even when they come up with a medication that's so helpful, but it always has this backlash of side effects. So here we've got this chemical that's been very helpful in fighting fire and grease, all the things that it's good for, but the backlash. And I read in your article where you talked about these PFAS as forever toxic chemicals. So you've just alluded to that they're very persistent. Can you expound on that a little bit and tell me, why are they called forever toxic chemicals?
Well, first, they're toxic because they're harmful to humans and they're harmful to the environment.
Right.
They're forever because they're extremely resistant to degradation, meaning they don't break down. Due to these tight, strong chemical bonds, they're also very hard to destroy. They can stay in environmental groundwater, wastewater, rivers, lakes, reservoirs, soil, and some other things like fast food wrappers, pizza boxes, stain-resistant materials that are used in clothes and furniture, pesticides, waterproof candy wrappers, microwave popcorn bags.
Oh, no!
I'm using
my microwave popcorn.
not microwave bags anymore. And the list goes on. And they're called ubiquitous because they're everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, current estimates in some of the studies are that 97% of human beings in this country have PFAS chemicals in their bodies already.
Well, just from the list of things you listed, and I was mentally checking off how many of those things are around me on an everyday basis or on a weekly basis. So I think it would almost be impossible for us not to have some impact from PFAS.
I agree.
So since it's all around us, and that's not likely to change, so tell me, what is the big deal about them? What do they do to us?
Well, the big deal is that as they're now being studied, they're being found to be way more problematic than they originally believed. The PFAS family consists of more than 12,000 members, if you will, 12,000 or more different chemicals, and they can contaminate the water supply anywhere, including drinking water. There's an organization called the Environmental Working Group, EWG, which is a nonprofit corporation they have been going around and testing water and drinking water in America. Recently, they reported that in one of their studies, they found PFAS in every single sample except one.
Wow.
Now, another big deal is that they are what we call biochemically accumulative, meaning that they can last in landfill, not just for a year or two, but for hundreds of years.
Wow.
And once they get inside the human body, they can stay there for years and years, and perhaps for some people, an entire lifetime. The big deal is that every single PFAS chemical that has been tested has been identified as harmful. You might have noticed on cookware, if you were looking to purchase any recently, that some of them have a little sticker and it will say, free from PFOA and PFOS. Those are just two PFAS chemicals. They've been found to be extremely harmful. So I'm always looking at whatever I buy to see if there's something on there that says free from PFAS or one of its cousins.
Yeah, well, so for sure, I don't want to be heating up my food with something that's going to leach into my food that could harm me. That even if I've gone clean and organic and paid attention to the dirty dozen and everything right, then that final step of cooking, I want to make sure I haven't contaminated my food at the last minute. So that's important, and that's shocking to me that it was in every water sample except one. Like that
in that study.
That's a really shocking revelation, and that it can just live and last in groundwater and rainwater and runoff. That's something really to note and be aware of.
When I got the abstract, I read it 3 times.
Yeah.
Because I thought, oh my goodness, am I reading this correctly? And I was.
Yeah. Well, so in addition to water, like clearly it's all around us in the water. What other things might contain PFAS?
Well, you mentioned firefighting foam. Very helpful with that.
Right.
But again, when you're fighting a fire, you've got the water hose, and I guess you got the foam machine. And so they sort of get into the wastewater supplies, and then they find their ways into streams and rivers and lakes and drinking water sources.
Wow.
See, PFAS coatings are used in so many products, clothing, furniture, adhesives because of their bonds, food packaging, heat resistant, non-stick cooking surfaces, and we mentioned that. Insulation in electrical wires. Unfortunately, they're reported to also be found in sunscreen.
Right.
Eye makeup and other forms of trying to make ourselves look better. Nail polish, dental floss, shampoo. I carry a magnifying glass and I read labels now. They can build up in the human body.
Right. And
they're resistant to being excreted. So the more exposure, the more chance you have for this bioaccumulation to occur. and they're absorbed faster than the body can eliminate them.
Okay, so you mentioned exposure, and in the different ways that exposure can occur, and I wonder the difference of obviously coming in contact with your skin versus ingesting whatever the amounts of and how it gets into your body. Talk to me about exposure and how does what's the link to our exposure to PFAS and our health? Some of the things that they've discovered, even now, I think they're probably just discovering, because it's kind of a modern situation. They haven't been looking at this for 100 years.
No, and some of the studies do say strongly suggest further research is going to be done. Well, you can be exposed by drinking contaminated water.
Yeah.
Wherever you get it from.
Right.
People go camping and drink out of the stream, and they may get it there, but certainly in, tap water. If you're working around PFAS, as in a manufacturing company,
right,
that are making chemicals, or firefighting, if you don't have a mask on and you've got all this foam combining with the water,
right,
using products that contain PFAS, or absorbing them in contaminated food. They've been linked to so many health problems, and we're just getting started, as you mentioned.
Right.
They can contribute to poor health, even when the individuals have been exposed to just a small amount, because they stay in the body. Studies have shown that PFAS can lead to a risk for kidney cancer, testicular cancer, higher cholesterol levels, damage to the liver because of what it does to liver enzymes. It can increase blood pressure, contribute to high blood pressure. It can contribute to preeclampsia, that
wow,
awful stuff that can happen to pregnant women when they're,
right,
feet and legs swell, and it's terrible. It can also impact weight in infant birth weights, making them lower than would be desirable. They can decrease the ability of the body in children to get a benefit from a vaccine, and that's kind of scary.
Right.
And they damage the brain-body immune systems, period.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's where you and I always come back to, right? Is immune system and inflammation. These, the link between inflammation and our immunity, and the link, but it seems like inflammation is at the root of all disease process in the body.
It's been linked with more than 50 chronic diseases, and so I want to keep the inflammation down in my body.
Right. Well, so talk to me about PFAS and what that does to the immune system, and what your thinking is regarding inflammation.
Well, what we think we know so far is that PFAS chemicals are called endocrine disruptors, meaning they interfere with the hormone systems. So both inflammation and immune system alteration are major concerns. They're linked, for example, with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. PFAS appears to activate some of the same receptors that fatty acids activate, leading to what? Inflammation of the liver.
Right.
Analogous to the results of eating a very unhealthy diet. Researchers have found that these toxic forever chemicals impact both the body's immune system and the brain's immune system.
Wow.
The lymphatic vessels that you may have remembered from earlier discussions were only discovered in 2016.
Right.
Nobody knew. They're redoing all the textbooks because they didn't think the brain had an immune system. Well, it does.
It does.
So in 2021, animal models and human studies both reported that PFAS can alter the immune systems, potentially weakening their ability to fight disease and preventing the body from producing the desired levels of antibodies in response to vaccines. And I will digress to make the comment that I'm wondering if the individuals who had breakthrough COVID after receiving the vaccines perhaps had higher levels of PFAS in their body.
In their body, that's a possibility.
The American Heart Association, I found this interesting, reported that middle-aged women who have high blood concentrations of PFAS are 70% more likely to develop elevated blood pressure than their peers who have lower levels of those chemicals. I mean,
Wow.
That's just scary. And it's, I
Right?
certainly have reached middle age for a female.
Me too. I'm going to live to 120.
And postmenopausal women already have a drop in their estrogen that impacts the immune system.
Right.
And so then you have this pro-inflammatory response already because of lowered estrogen. Now you add PFAS, and they really have an increased risk for atherosclerosis and stroke. And you can start seeing that whatever is going on already, PFAS
Right.
can just add to it and exacerbate it.
Yeah. And you mentioned non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And the reason that caught my ear is because it seems like at every dinner party that I'm at right now, somebody is dealing with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in my circles. It just, like, out of the blue, where is that coming from? But if it's linked to the amount of PFAS in the body and all the things that are surrounding us that have it, particularly just drinking it, if we're just drinking it in the water all day, drinking that in, using it in all the cooking, everything we're doing, it's no wonder that some of these conditions that you didn't hear about 25, 30, 40 years ago, unless someone was unhealthy. Healthy people are struggling with odd issues. And it does make you wonder and at least consider that we should pay attention to PFAS and do whatever it is we can to mitigate and to reduce our exposure to them.
And there you come back to the bioavailability, the bioaccumulativeness. Because let's say that they're eating a menu that isn't good for the liver, and now you add PFAS to that. And if by any chance they take wine with dinner every night, okay, there you've got three factors right there, and it's bioaccumulative. Yeah,
that's important to remember. That's important. So thank you for bringing that up. So if PFAS, if they're in the water supply, clearly they're in the water supply. No one's denying that. And they're dangerous. So as we're just finding out about them, what do we know that's starting to be done about it?
I just got an article not long ago that reported on what the United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, started doing in June of 2022. That's when they started issuing a warning against what they called toxic forever chemicals in drinking water, which is where I think probably that phrase came from.
Right.
The EPA is making available $1 billion, not million, billion, $1 billion in grant funding to help communities that are on the front lines of PFAS contamination, because some places in the country have a lot more contamination than others. And first on their list is to reduce PFAS in drinking water, especially in communities that are facing this disproportional impact. So their strategies include technical assistance, certainly water quality testing, contractor training, and the installation of centralized treatment technologies and systems. Once they, we mentioned earlier, they're very hard to destroy.
Right.
So what else could be done? Can we extract them and send them out into outer space? I don't know what, but that's really scary.
Right. And it will certainly take time, as knowledge comes, it will take time for companies to consider alternatives that might give us some of the same benefits without using these chemicals. And it's not like you could just boil your water and they go away.
No,
That's not how you get rid of them. The only way you could get rid of them would be, to have something that would help you filter them out at
exactly.
the source. So how can, well, that brings us to how do we protect ourselves from ingesting these PFAs?
Well, when you look at all the research, I think the number one thing is you want to drink the cleanest, purest water you can possibly find.
Yeah.
So for me, I avoid drinking tap water. I would never drink tap water anywhere unless I had to have the water, because your body needs the water. But
Right.
otherwise, I don't drink tap water. Neither do I drink bottled water in plastic. Go to the airport and the bins are just filled with the plastic water bottles, and that I don't think is too safe.
Right.
I personally drink purified water. I also use clean filtered water in all my cooking.
Right.
I carry a stainless steel thermos of purified water in the car so that I don't have to stop and run in and buy a bottle of plastic. I read labels, Wendy, and that means you have to carry a magnifying glass because some of the print is ridiculously small, and my brain's opinion is that that's on purpose.
That's on purpose. Yeah.
Because if you knew that the number one ingredient in 7 different types of catsup, for example, the first ingredient is high fructose corn syrup, which is another one of these, things you really don't want.
Right.
Maybe they wouldn't buy it. So I carry a little magnifying glass. And I don't care if people think as I'm looking through it that, oh my, she must be 130. She can't see anything. It's my body. I'm going to read.
That's right.
I carefully read the composition of cookware, and I look for those that don't have any of those 2 really bad ones, very harmful ones that have been so common. I read the labels on shampoo. I read the labels on makeup.
So are they listed on labels? Is it listed as PFAS, or are you looking for that polyfluoral?
I'm looking for both.
For
Or
both.
I'm looking for something that says, no PFAS.
Gotcha. Okay. And my trick, I don't have a magnifying glass, but I use my phone camera and blow it up. So for those who are not ready to carry a magnifying glass, you got a phone in your pocket, you can still blow it up or take a picture of it, blow it up and read.
I don't want to buy anything that's wrapped against my food, so that, I used to grab sandwiches for lunch. I'm making my sandwiches at lunch now.
Right.
I look carefully for companies that say products are free from PFAS, and there are companies that are saying that now. You can even Google on internet companies that are working to keep PFAS out of their products, and that's been helpful.
That's a good tip. So I know you and I both have an Ion Thrive water machine, and with the just the awareness that PFAS are in so much of the drinking water around us. And I do believe we even we checked with Greg to find out, okay, is Ion Thrive, does their filtration, is that 0.01 micron small enough that it catches these things? So my understanding is that this is like one of the best machines available as far as filtering down to the smallest possible particle to have pure clean water. So tell me how you feel about using your Ion Thrive machine and how that makes you feel about with PFAS, and what you think, if research shows what this could remove from the water supply.
I'm happy to do that, Wendy. My nonprofit corporation does not allow me to endorse products.
Correct.
But I can tell you what I do.
Right.
So my understanding is this: the CDC, the EPA, and environmental sciences have all made specific recommendations about how to get PFAS out of drinking water.
Right.
And according to the KYK manufacturer of Ion Thrive, the good news is they say their machines meet or exceed the recommendations from all three of those organizations for removing PFAS from drinking and cooking water. So I'm working diligently to reduce my exposure to PFAS, and I'm sure I've got decades of exposure, but I'm working on it. And one of my strategies is that I don't drink anything if I have that option unless it's gone through my Ion Thrive machine.
Yeah, I'm the same way. All my drinking water comes through my Ion Thrive machine. I either use glass water bottle or stainless steel. I use glass drinking cups. I use the clean water function for cooking or making, even if I'm going to brew a cup of tea or something, because I just really want to make sure in a sea of, of everything. And it's overwhelming when you think that they're all around us. Again, I want people not to feel overwhelmed by our enemy that, hey, there's the PFAS out there and they're going to come in to get you. It's a matter of deciding, you know what, I'm aware of this, and now my awareness means I can take whatever steps I can, and simply using a water filtration, Ion Thrive system, that's a huge thing. If all of my drinking water has been cleansed and captured those, that's a big step in the right direction.
Well, the brain and body needs water. Dehydration, as we've talked about before, is so lethal. It is linked with the development of dementias.
Yeah.
And so I would rather give something else up and have the cleanest drinking water that I can possibly have.
Yeah, I agree. It would be wise, for a family. I know sometimes you look at the cost of a machine and you think, oh my goodness. But you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for your health, either in prevention or in treatment. And I would much rather pay for it in the prevention. And sometimes you can't treat everything. You can go down the rabbit hole, and no matter how much money or energy you throw at it, does not necessarily mean you can get your way all the way back to wholeness and health. So like you, I have encouraged those around me, hey, you should look at this and make this a priority. Tuck away for it if you have to, or give something else up to have this in your home, because it can just be so beneficial to health overall.
To do a short digression, there are multiple studies out now showing that in some countries, like the United States, children, a good percentage of them don't drink any water during the day. They're drinking sodas and colas and sugary drinks and even fruit juice, which is high sugar because you don't have all the pulp and stuff from the fruit. So, if you could only do one thing, I'd say do water.
Yeah, I agree. That's such an easy start. That's an easy start for us. So, as always, I could talk to you for hours. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate, like you, we both have this commitment to be intentional about what we allow in our lives. That's not just chemicals and substances, but that's toxic environments of all kinds. Whether that's people or personalities or whatever that is, if I want to live that longevity, flourishing lifestyle, we're careful about that. So I just want to give you the opportunity, if you have any last comment about protecting ourselves from PFAs, chemicals, things like that. So just anything you want to share with us before we go, I would love to hear from you.
Well, you already know a lot about what I value and what I think is important. You can't prevent everything. That's the first thing you have to understand, is you cannot prevent everything. It's impossible. You can't avoid every harmful person, place, thing, substance, or illness on planet Earth. But you can avoid some of them altogether. And you can reduce exposures to some degree to others. There's a term in epidemiology called the inoculum level. And for people not familiar with that, it refers to the amount of something to which you are exposed. Okay. And the higher the inoculum level, of a virus or bacteria or PFAS or whatever, then the risk of your likely becoming ill goes up. So the higher your level of exposure to PFAS, the higher your risk of negative consequences. So your daily lifestyle choices add up. They are also bioaccumulative.
Right.
They add up to a positive or a negative outcome. So I can't worry about what I can't control, but I am conscious and consciously concerned about what I can control, controlling that, and then managing by avoidance or minimization or whatever what I can't control, because cumulatively, every little bit of prevention helps to reduce, lower the inoculum level of PFAS.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best we can do.
I agree. I know that my life today is the product of all the choices I made yesterday and the day before and the day before. And I want to encourage those listening or watching, if your health and wellness is not where you want it to be, the best thing to do is to make a new choice today, to make a different choice today, and just begin realizing that it's a cumulative effect. And so, years of poor decisions don't disappear with a day of right choices, but every transformation starts with a decision. So make a decision today about what you can and will do sustainably. Again, the lowest hanging fruit on that vine is pay attention to your water. Just start right there. Commit to drinking pure, clean, filtered, and we're not talking about hydrogen today, but the benefits of hydrogen water. Water is like the source. It's the building block here. So we just kind of want to encourage you.
I got one last comment, and that is that when people decide they're going to make some different choices and they don't feel 30 years younger the next day, some people tend to say, well, it's not working.
Right.
Okay, here's the research. What you do today in exercise, deep breathing, water, food intake, positive mindset, all of those things that help to slow down the process of aging, what you do today impacts your immune system. But that impact will not show up for about 12 to 18 months because it takes a lot for the immune system to fail. It also takes a long time for the immune system to build itself up. So right. avoid feeling like it isn't working. Every positive thing you do today can result in a more positive immune system in a year and a half.
Yeah, that's such good advice. Thank you. Thank you for that. So I hope you will all take that to heart. Everything that we've talked about today, it's fascinating. And we just want to encourage you to make good choices for your health. We want you living a longevity lifestyle, being healthy octogenarians and beyond. And so centenarians, exactly. Absolutely. I want to join that club. I'm going to join that club of, and still be active and bright and alive and healthy. And so we just really appreciate the time. I appreciate the time you've spent with me, and to everyone watching and listening, we appreciate the time you've given to hear Dr. Arlene on this subject. And I hope that you will make some good choices starting right now. Thank you, Dr. Arlene.
My pleasure.